This is Chuck Dannyhauer with University of Tennessee Extension on our weekly weekly webinar series that we're doing. I'm filling in today for Dr. Aaron Smith. Today is March the 10th, 2015. We'd like to thank Dr. Smith for the opportunity to fill in today, and also thank Tammy McKinley for assisting and really help run the show today and help get this going. If we might have some technical difficulties, if we do, it'll be on my end, and I'll try to get those adjusted as soon as I can. Today I'd like to talk about a couple of different topics. One will be the generic base, is a topic that we have in of discussion for today. The other will be the STAX program, and that particularly deals to cotton producers that are planting cotton. Then we'll end up with a little interactive map of Tennessee that shows some projections. Basically it's an estimation of payments for the ARC and PLC programs that are generated by one of the decision aids. So we'll look at that at the end of the program. Well, let's jump right in and get on the generic base and talk about that for a few minutes. Generic base is basically the old cotton base that we had in this farm bill. Now, just look at a definition of base acres first before we start talking about the generic base. But the base acres, just number of acres with respect to a covered commodity on the farm that was in effect as of September 30th, 2013. And of course, that's subject to any reallocation adjustments or any reductions that you might have at the FSA office. Now, this term base acres does include any generic bases planted to a covered commodity, and we'll go into detail with that. And basically, the generic base or upland cotton acres that were in existence as of September 30th, 2013. They're fixed acres. They cannot be increased or decreased, and you cannot be added to. Now, in Tennessee, we have approximately 736,000 acres of old cotton base in the state. Now, that base it will now be generic base. Typically, at least, I won't say typically, but for 2015, the projection, at least from the National Cotton Council producer surveys, are that we will plant somewhere around, probably less than 200,000 acres. So I think the projection was 176,000, so we'll be somewhat less than 200,000 acres of cotton. So that leaves quite a bit of acreage, over 500,000 acres of generic base that probably won't be planted to cotton, and that can be assigned to another crop. And those generic base acres that are planted to a covered commodity, and we generally talk about covered commodities in Tennessee, the main ones are corn, soybeans, wheat, some milo, maybe a few areas that might have some canola, maybe some barley, some things like that. Those are our covered commodities. And those base acres that are planted to a covered commodity, that generic base, and they'll be treated just like any other base acres for the purpose of the payment programs of ARC and PLC. And if you have a generic base, they may receive payment under the ARC or PLC for acres planted to a covered commodity. We'll talk about that quite a bit. I mean, I'll probably say that numerous times, that the acreage has to be planted to that covered commodity to be assigned, and that's in the generic base. Now, covered commodities planted on the generic base, they're used to attribute generic base acres to a covered commodity or be assigned for that year. And they'll be treated as base acres for the ARC PLC payment calculations if a payment is triggered. Now, the generic base acres are assigned to the base when an acre of a covered commodity is planted. If no covered commodities are planted, there is no assignment of the generic base acres, generic acres to the base acres or payment acres. And what that means would be if you're a cotton producer and you're still planting cotton, cotton is no longer a covered commodity in this farm bill. So there would be no assignment of that generic base to the payment acres in that instance. If a single covered commodity is planted and the planted acres exceeds the generic base, then the generic base will be attributed to that covered commodity in an amount equal to the total number of generic base acres on the farm. Now, if we have multiple cover commodities and they're planted and the total number of acres planted exceeds the generic base acres, then the generic base will be attributed or assigned to each of the cover commodities on the farm, and that will be in a prorated basis. Let's look at an example. Now, in this example, we got, say, a 2013 base acres. We had wheat, 150 acre base. We had a 250 acre soybean base. We had a 100 acre corn base, and we had 75 acres of a generic base. Again, that was our old cotton base. So let's look at that again. 150 acre wheat base, 250 acre bean base, 100 acre corn base, and a generic base of 75 acres. Now, in 2014, for instance, say we planted 200 acres of corn and 250 acres of soybeans. So we're going to have to prorate, because we're planting more than one cover commodity, we'll have to prorate the generic base to those two crops, corn and beans, and make those payment acres. So if we had 200 acres of planted corn, we divide that by the total number of acres planted, which is 450 in this example. That's 44.4%. And then if we take our 250 acres of soybeans that are planted, divided by 450, that's equal to 55.6%. So we multiply those percentages times our generic base of 75 acres, and we come up with a 33.3 acre corn generic base attributed to corn, and a 41.7 acre soybean base attributed to the beans. So let's look at what the new base would be. For corn, we would have the 100 acres that we already had. That was a fixed base. That was a 100 acre corn base. We add to it the 33.3, and that's just for, in this example, 2014 only, because that's based on the planted acres. So our new payment base for corn is 133.3. For beans, we would take the 250, that was the fixed base. We'll add the 41.7 acre of base that we had. And again, that's just for 2014. So our new payment base is 291.7. And then we still had a wheat base that was fixed. Even though we didn't plant wheat, we still have that base. And so we have a 150 acre payment base for wheat. Now let's look at our second example. In this example, we got the same base. We got the 150 acre wheat base, the 250 acre soybean base, 100 acre corn base, and again the 75 acre generic or the old cotton base. Now let's say on this example, we're going to plant 200 acres, or we planted 200 acres of corn in 2014, and we did plant 250 acres of cotton in 2014. So we planted corn and cotton. All right, so in this example, we've got 2014 base acres for the payment, ARC and County and PLC. We had the 100 acre corn base, and we're going to add to it 75 acres of the generic base. So if let's go back to the previous slide where we planted, only covered commodity that we planted in this example was corn. We planted 200 acres of corn. And if you'll remember, cotton no longer is a covered commodity, and so it no longer has a payment base at FSA at the FSA office. So we planted 200 acres of corn. That was our covered commodity. So since we planted more corn, the 200 acres is more than the generic base. Remember, the generic base was 75 acres. We can only assign or attribute 75 acres, which is our total generic base, to corn. So in this case, that's what we did. We took the 75 acres of corn, 75 acres of the generic base, that goes to corn. So that add that to the 100 acres that was a fixed base. So we got 175 acres of corn base. We still had 250 acres of beans of a fixed base. Even though we didn't plant beans this year in 14, we still have that base. And as same as with wheat, we got 150 acres of a fixed base with wheat. All right, so just to summarize that again, this is what our payment acres in this example would be. 175 acres of corn, 250 acres of soybeans, and 150 acres of wheat. And then we still planted, on the farm, we still planted cotton, that 250 acres of cotton. on the farm, which again no longer cover commodity, so it's not comes into these payment calculations as far as the base acres. All right, now to wrap up generic base, how they're assigned or attributed will vary from year to year, and that's going to depend on what's actually planted. We can't assign it ourselves. It's going to be based on what actually gets planted, what actually gets planted and certified is planted at the FSA office, and that'll be determined. That's when that kind of determination, I guess, is made on the assignment of the generic base after that acreage gets certified. One of the things that we would look at as far as from a farm management standpoint, I think would be to plant, of course, for the highest crop returns, and looking at what's most profitable, as well as things that are important to that farm or to that producer as far as maintaining good crop rotations, and which probably can help factor into the highest crop returns. But if possible, let's maximize the use of the generic base, and I think that can be an important aspect of this farm bill to producers that have generic base. And in many cases, we got some farms in West Tennessee that's all they have will be a generic base. If you look on the sheet, it'll say there's no acres to reallocate because the whole farm is generic base. Well, essentially, what will happen in that case, then, if those producers are not planting cotton, they can that generic base will be probably prorated if they plant more than one crop, but it'll go to whatever crop they planted, whether it's corn or soybeans or wheat that's being actually planted on that farm. So it can be a good deal in that instance. Okay, that kind of wraps up our generic base discussion that I had. Let's see if we can move over and talk about the STAX program. Let me see if I can get that loaded. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Farm Bill STAX, the STAX part of the Farm Bill. The STAX is a crop insurance program. Now, let's look just for a second at the insurance programs that we have for cotton, and then we'll talk in detail about STAX. Of course, you got your traditional crop insurance, which either how you look at whether it's yield protection, the YP, revenue protection, RP, and some producers may take revenue protection with the harvest price exclusion that we have, or there may still be some taking some area risk protection insurance. So that's your traditional crop insurance program that we have. Along with that, we have the STAX income protection plan that is new as part of this farm bill, and we just call that STAX. Then we can have traditional crop insurance with STAX. Now, I want you to know you cannot have any overlap, and we'll go into detail in a second. And then we also, in cotton, can have traditional crop insurance and the supplemental coverage option, or SCO. And again, no overlap in that policy either. And I won't talk about SCO today, but the overlap part will function just like the STAX part does. All right, so let's talk about what STAX is. It's strictly a crop insurance policy, provides area-based coverage for a portion of the expected area revenue, and it's more referred to as a shallow loss insurance coverage. It can be purchased with an individual or area crop policy, or what we would call the companion policy, or it can stand alone. Now, that's an important aspect, the difference between STAX and SCO. SCO would have to be purchased with a companion policy, whereas the STAX can stand alone. It's for cotton producers only, and it's only based on the planted acres. So you do have to plant the crop to be eligible to buy STAX. It does provide on revenue coverage. It's not tied to a companion policy. It does have an 8% premium subsidy. Does have a separate premium and administrative fee, again, through your crop insurance agent. Looking at an overview of STAX, the coverage depends on the expected area yield and the higher of the harvest of the projected or harvest price, and that's unless you take that harvest price exclusion. We have very few that take the harvest, that do the harvest price exclusion, and frankly, I wouldn't really recommend you do that. I think you probably need to take that harvest price with it. What we're looking at, it may start at 90% of the area revenue. You do have some different points that you can select in there, but it can start at 90% of the area revenue. It'll end at 70%. So we have a range of 20% in there that you can select to pick. So the maximum range is 20. If there are multiple types of practices for the insured crop in the county, the policy protection for STAX will be determined separately for each level type practice. So if we've got irrigated, non-irrigated cotton in a county, they've taken that and separated that at RMA. And this is based off RMA data, Risk Management Agency data, which is your crop insurance data. Now, there is a protection factor that you can choose, and then go from 80% to 120%, which if you've got maybe a little higher yield and want more protection than just say a 100, the base 100 or 100% that you might have, you might want to look at the 120% to give you a little higher revenue protection. Let's look at kind of how this sets, how this works with your individual policy. Now, in this example, we've got a producer has a 75% buy-up coverage. In that case, the STAX is going to sit right on top of it. So it'll set and go. It'll be from 75% to the 90% of that expected revenue for that area or county. In this case, now if the producer had 60% buy-up coverage or had 6% policy, the STAX would be start at 70%. So it'd go from 70 to 90%. So there'd be a little opening in there, a little hole in there, but it would go from 70 to 9%. Now, if a producer had, say, 80% coverage, individual coverage or policy on their cotton, STAX will again set right on top of it. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks on STAX, there is no overlap of the insurance policies. So this would start at 80%, go to 90%. Now let's look at an example. This example is based on Haywood County, Tennessee. And I pulled these numbers off yesterday, so I'm hoping they will be accurate, but I would recommend producers that want to investigate the crop of the STAX program. And in Tennessee, we've got until March 15th. So we only got 5 more days if you're interested in looking at it. So I would encourage you to talk to your crop insurance agent to get quotes from them as far as what the premiums are and what the coverage. But I think I pulled off, as close as I could, some accurate information. The insurance projected price, and I did break these into 2 different columns. One column is for non-irrigated cotton in Haywood County. The other column is for irrigated cotton in Haywood County. So if we look at these 2 columns, the insurance projected price is going to be the same for both irrigated and non-irrigated. That's the February average of December cotton, and that came in around 64 cents. If we look at the expected county yield per planted acre, and this is RMA data, it's 827 pounds for non-irrigated and 1,040 pounds for the irrigated. So we just take, it's simple math, we take 64 cents times 827, and we come up with $529 and some change of expected county revenue. And let's go through the non-irrigated first, and then we'll come through and I'll go through the irrigated. So our expected county revenue is $529. So we look at, if we selected a 90%, a policy that would get started at 90% on the STAX, that would be our trigger level. We pick our trigger point, 90%. So it's 90% of the expected revenue. We multiply that times the expected county revenue, and our number then is $476. So that would be more or less our trigger, the trigger revenue. Now you look at the what would be the maximum indemnity that this program would pay, and it does depend on what your coverage level, I mean that protection factor. In my example, I took the 120% or 1.2 of that. So we would take 20% of the expected county revenue and multiply that times 1.2, excuse me, and that maximum indemnity then is $127. Now the premium cost on this, and I pulled this from the RMA crop decision tool. I'll show you some links here in a second on where you can find that information. But the total premium is $34.19, and these premiums are 80% subsidized by USDA. So the producer premium would be $6.84 for this policy, for this non-irrigated policy. Now let's switch over and look at the irrigated column. We got the same 64-cent projected price. Our expected county yield is 1,040 pounds. So our expected county revenue is 660, we'll say 666. 665.60 is what it calculates out. And I imagine there'll be some rounding in all this. But that's our expected county revenue. If we pick the 9% trigger that we have, we multiply that times that expected revenue, we come up with $599 of will be our expected revenue, or the trigger point of the revenue. Again, we look at our maximum indemnity, which is 120% of 20% of the county revenue that we have, and our maximum indemnity is 143.77. So that's the very most that this program would pay. The total premium on this is about $51, and then we take the subsidy out, and the producer part is going to be about $10.20. So that's what it's going to cost. All right, let's look at some trigger yields that we would have. Now, if we look at just strictly at, say prices stay in this range that we're at, mid-60s, 64 cents or higher, I guess. But let's look at that first. If we do that, our trigger yield in that case for the non-irrigated is 744 pounds. So for this payment, for this program or policy to pay, the STAX policy, as parameters that I've selected, for it to pay the cotton in Haywood County, the county yield on planted acres would have to be 744 pounds or less, or under 744 pounds. Now, I pulled up some historical RMA yields, and you can see over the last 10 years, if we look from 2004 through 2013, because we don't have 14 yields yet. If we look from 2004 to 13, we'll see that there were 4 years in those 10-year period that the yields were less than 744 pounds. So we had 714 in 2013. We had 735 in 2011, and then we of course had a pretty bad year in 2007. So it would have paid pretty good bit in 2007 when we made 506 pounds, and then in 2004 we made 676 pounds in Haywood County. So it would have paid in those years. Now, if we look at irrigated, the trigger yield at 64 cents or higher is 936 pounds. So our irrigated cotton per planted acre would have to come in below 936 pounds for this policy to trigger payment. And we had, again, 4 years that payments would have been triggered if we looked at the last 10. It would have been 2013, 2011, 2009, and 2007. Would have been years that would have triggered a payment in that case. Now, the other part that you might would look at would be, well, what if prices decline? Like this example just looks at prices staying in the mid-60 range or higher, and then the other part of the protection, because this is revenue that we're protecting, is a price decline. So let's look and see what the trigger yields would be at different price levels. If we look first at 62 cents, trigger level for the non-irrigated is 768 pounds. The irrigated would be 966 pounds. At 60 cents, the trigger level would be 794 pounds. So cotton, as you'll see in this little chart, as prices go down, the trigger yields go up. So it doesn't take quite as much of a loss on the yield side to trigger a payment. So like at 58 cents, takes 821 pounds or less for the non-irrigated to trigger a payment. Irrigated would be 1,033 pounds. And so as we go, if we went down to 54 cents, we would have 882 would be our non-irrigated trigger. On irrigation, 1109. So it if prices were to drop, and this would be based off the October average of the December cotton price. That's how they would figure it in Tennessee. So that if that price came in at 54 cents, then yields wouldn't have to drop much at all for there to trigger a payment. And that's in years, I think we think that prices may decline substantially. This would be a very good policy to take out to look at, especially on that shallow loss. This year, I don't know that we're expecting prices. Of course, nobody knows from one year to the next what prices are going to do. Right now that I don't know that we would look at our process would think that prices will drop substantially from the mid-60 level that we're at now. Very well could happen. I mean, we've got a huge supply of cotton worldwide. We'll have a new crop report come out later on today, and probably just continue that confirmation of that world supply, our world ending stocks that we have. So very well could happen that we could see a price drop. But I think most analysts are probably looking at price staying in that 60 to 65 cent range, possibly on up higher to low 70s in there. We certainly hope that sometime during the year, if we're a cotton producer, prices get up higher than 70 cents. But there's no certainty of that. Okay, some things, just a little verbiage I'll go over real quick. I won't stay long on these slides, but again, the closing date, March 15th. That we have in Tennessee. Now, other states, I know Arkansas, their closing date was February 28th, so we're already past that date for, say, Arkansas. But in Tennessee, it is March 15th. So if you have an interest in this, certainly need to get with your crop insurance agent by that closing date of March 15th. The policyholder can elect STAX as a standalone policy, or you can have a companion policy under your common crop insurance provisions. You do have to buy both policies. If you have a companion policy, they have to be through the same agent. If for some reason you do select, the supplemental coverage option or STAX is a similar program. However, just got to make sure we can't have the same cotton acres on STAX and SCO at the same time. You have to designate it by the sales closing date which way you're going on this insurance policy. STAX cover, again, like any other insurance policy, is continuous. It can be canceled by providing written notice no later than the cancellation date. And if you wish to make STAX coverage, it must be made by the applicable crop sale closing date, which is in our state is March 15th. And it can be terminated by the insurance provider with the following crop year for non-payment of any outstanding debt by the termination date. Again, some insurance choices on this. You can select protection factor from 80 to 120%. You can select the area loss trigger and coverage range. The area's loss triggers are 90% on down to 75%. And that's the percent of the expected revenue at which a loss is triggered. Now, in your coverage range, that can range from 5% to 20%. So that's where it like started at 70%, goes up to 90%, and you can select that in 5% increments. Available values will be shown in the actuarial documents and then selected for each type of practice, like irrigation or non-irrigation. Some other factors to consider: how closely does your yield move with the county average yield? If they do not move together, there's a good chance of not getting paid when there is a loss, as well as there is possibility of a chance of getting a payment when you don't have a loss. So that's an important part to consider, how your yields move with the county yield. The other part, how much area risk can your grower tolerate, and that could have a decision or affect what kind of companion policy, if any, that you take out with this program. The insurance does attach when planting begins. only covers the planted acreage of the crop, does not provide any payments for replant or prevented planting. There's no late planting period for this. All acres must be planted by the final planting date. And they, as far as insurance, no written agreements are available. Some other things, just looking at the acreage of production reports, they just, that's pretty well basic information excuse me, that we have. They do require a production report for STAX, and they information on that's in the actuarial documents. After the summary reports processed, policyholders issue summary of coverage. And these are just basic things that any insurance program has. Premium billing, I'm just going to quickly go through these. These information does have a separate administrative fee that you've got. Some things to look at, some differences: notice of damage or loss of production. If you've got a individual companion policy, you would have to provide notice of damage within 72 hours. You don't have to do that with the STAX part. If you just had STAX, you would not have to do that. Of course, if you had STAX on top of a companion policy, you would still need to do that for a companion policy. There is no inspection, no impact on the STAX coverage as compared to if you had a companion policy. There would be some inspection by a loss adjuster. Indemnity claim. Typically, on a companion policy, the claim for an indemnity is processed. After the adjuster comes out, looks at it, indemnity check and summary of the indemnity payment, is issued, deducts out any payment or outstanding premium that's owed or anything. For STAX, indemnity is going to be determined later than say for your companion policy. And the reason for that is it's got to wait till the actual county yields are released, and typically that's going to be in late spring, particularly for cotton, it's a little later than the other crops. So it'll be sometime in the spring. So the payment probably will not be issued till probably early summer. So if you had a claim, say you have a claim in 2015, or the county makes a low yield and triggers a payment on STAX, you would not get a payment. You would not receive a payment until 2016, probably the summer of 2016. And just the actuarial documents, they will specify the data source for the final area yields, release dates. Generally, that's going to be through RMA. Will be where the information comes from on that. It does say that within 30 days after RMA or FCIC releases the final area yields, that's the payment will be paid, or the loss. If there's a loss, it will be paid within 30 days after that release of the final area yields. Some other things we're looking at, just some program changes you might have. Again, if you want to cancel STAX, and you have to put them a written notice, much like you would any kind of insurance program. All right, let's look just quickly at some crop insurance decision tools. I'm just going to leave these websites up here to look at. I'm not going to go to them, but if you've got USDA's RMA Farm Bill website, we got that. The crop insurance decision tool, it can help you look at calculate the premium for STAX and help you look at some decision aids or tools or is a tool that you can look at in making this insurance decision. If you have an interest, National Cotton Council's put together the RMA yield data like I showed earlier, and that is at this website, the bottom website, and you can look at that and see what for your county, what the RMA yields on an irrigated, non-irrigated basis, that those are applicable, and what you can see what that is. Just quickly, some deadlines. These are applying to the whole farm bill. We have March 31st is an extended deadline for base reallocation and updating payment yields. Again, March 31st is the regular deadline to make that PLC or ARC decision. And if you're going to pick supplemental coverage option (SCO) to go along, you can only do that if it's covered commodity. You can only do that if you select PLC. you have until the March 15th to make that decision on that. And just make sure you cannot take SCO on any ARC, any selection on ARC County that you've done. And then during the mid-April to summer, you sign your contracts to participate in the 2014 to 15 crop years, and that's pretty well how we've done in the past. Just to rehash again what we got as far as this program, this Farm Bill. FSA, Farm Service Agency, they'll administer the ARC, the ARC, which is Agriculture Risk Coverage, and PLC, which is Price Loss Coverage. RMA, which is the Risk Management Agency, they'll handle crop insurance. They'll handle, not only do they, of course, handle the regular crop insurance, traditional policies that you got, they handle the supplemental coverage option, SCO, and STAX that we've been talking about. So that's all handled through RMA or your crop insurance agent. And just to quickly look and see the little decision tree or kind of how these programs work, I won't talk much about that, but if you're a crop insurance agent, again, that's your producer option to purchase additional coverage, and then if you go the PLC route, you can purchase SCO, and then if you're a cotton producer, you can purchase some STAX cotton on that. All right, that kind of ends my STAX. The last thing we want to look at and talk about is just some information that I've got from that Dr. Smith has put together on the website, and let's see if we can find that. Okay, we've got a map. Okay. We do have a map. I'm trying to see if I can locate that. A map on the Farm Bill website. We do have a map of Tennessee, which has certainly has each county. And each county, you can click on that and look at what the payments for potential payments would be for that county. Right now, I'm not able to pull that up for some reason. Let me keep trying and see if we can do that. Just have some pretty neat little features there on that. And that website in itself is economics.ag.utk.edu/crops/Farm Bill maps/TNmap.pdf. So that's kind of where that information is. I'm still having difficulty pulling that up in this, but and let's see if we can get to it from here. Okay, still not able to share that information on this screen, which I'm not sure why that's not doing that, but let's try it again here and see. Here we go. All right, now hopefully you can see this where we've got it's an interactive map. Again, it's at that website, our Farm Bill website. If you go to the Farm Bill website and click on the Farm Bill part, you'll see this estimated ARC County and PLC payments from USDA, FSA decision aids. And it's so let's click on that map, and we pull up a map of the state. Each county, I'm going to pick on Lauderdale County, where I'm based in Ripley. And we've got from the decision aids, we'll have first we got from University of Illinois. Theirs are based off the Congressional Budget Office or CBO prices, as well as factory prices. And then we have one from Texas A&M, which is based off the factory prices. And this is for corn, beans, and wheat. They've got kind of what 2014 is. per acre, per payment acre, and then we got the 2014 through 18 average per payment acre that would have. So in this case, if we use CBO prices on University of Illinois, we'd have $23 per acre on the corn base. If we had a PLC, we've got at CBO prices, it's $26 per acre. Factory prices would be $17 per acre on corn, $19 per acre on PLC. Then if we used Texas A&M's factory prices, it's $53 for corn on Ark County and $19 for corn on the PLC. Basically, and that's somewhat in line with the numbers I've been running. I've taken some numbers from the NASS yields that have come out, and I think based off the current projected price of $365, that may change today in the crop report, but based off that, we would have in Lauderdale County a payment somewhere, I believe, in that mid-20 range. So this could be overestimated a little bit with Texas A&M's prices, but it does depend on what actual yield that you may have entered in, or what the actual yield is per planted acre. And so Texas A&M may be using a derived yield. I'm not sure on that. But it's a useful tool for you to use. Kind of look at some of the payments. Again, that's at our Farm Bill website. Well, that basically wraps up everything I've got today. I hope I haven't gone too long on this, but that'll wrap up today's webinar. Again, we'll have another webinar, I believe, next week. On the 17th, Dr. Smith will be back, I think, for that. So I invite you to tune in that day, or look at us at another time. These are recorded, so you can review those at any time. With that, wrap up today's webinar.